Present your piece. Have a care! Get fire!
Whoa!
Combined arms demonstration over here.
Towards the gun.
There you go. Right there, that's it, yes.
You don't argue with a person with a musket like that, no.
It'll be fun, lads. You'll enjoy it. So, ladies and gentlemen, what you have before you is a company of the Mount Hope Train Band. Now, if you're wondering what a train band is, I'll tell you this. We have nothing to do with musical instruments. There's a few acts on this side that doesn't. We are indeed actually Her Majesty's National Guard, if you will. The train bands were formed as a sort of national defense, because Her Majesty was tired of relying upon her noblemen to raise soldiers for us. So she took matters into her own hands. Now, these are citizen soldiers, just like our modern National Guard. So these men would be taken from their shops and their fields and trained in the use of arms. They would meet once a fortnight to train with those said arms. Now, I've got two types of soldiers here. The armored pikemen and the matchlock musketeer. I'm going to work with each in turn to show you how they were trained, what they would do on the battlefield, and then I'm going to put them both together to show you how they would work as one cohesive unit. I'm going to start with the pikemen. Pikemen, prepare to march. And march on. Prepare to stand and stand. Face your body by the left hand. By the right hand, double your file. And pace yourselves 4 paces to the rear. So, we have the pikeman, named so for the very long spear in his hand. This is his primary weapon that he's going to use to defend himself on the battlefield. He also is carrying a sword at his side. He is also very well trained in the use of that. He is armored front and back with a breast and back plate. Some of our more well-to-do pikemen can afford cassets, thigh protection. Of course, they all are carrying a steel helmet to protect their face. Now, to move these gentlemen around on the battlefield, I need to teach them certain positions, what we call posture. And the first posture I will teach them is to order their pike. They'll place the butt of the pike upon the ground, placing their hands upon their hip, and generally standing about as though they were God's gift to women. This is about as disciplined as they get. Now, I need to be able to maneuver them around on the battlefield, so I'll teach them a posture called advance their pike. They'll take the pike straight up, placing it in the pocket that they make with their hands, carrying it nearly vertical. From this position, they can maneuver about very easily, however not very quickly. Should they move forward too fast, they may bounce that pike out of their shoulder. He'll come crashing down on the poor unfortunate soul in the rank in front of him, and now I've got a brawl in my hand. This is a terrible way to begin my week. So in order to maneuver them around on a march, I'll teach them to shoulder their pike. They'll bring the pike down at about the balance point, carrying it upon their shoulder, and now they can go great distances with ease. However, again, there's always give and take here. This reduces their mobility. If they are all to suddenly turn in their formation, now they're striking the shins of the gentleman in front of them. There's another brawl, and it's been a terrible month for me. Gentlemen, I use the term loosely. This brings us to the way the pikemen are going to engage in combat. The first position I'm going to teach them to do that is used against infantry. I'll teach them to charge their pike. So first I will have them advance their pikes, then court their pikes, which coincidentally is how we get around all these low-lying trees here. Also, it's how you get through doorways. That's why it's called court your pike. You may move through portholes. There's your vocabulary word for the day. And from here I will have them charge their pikes, placing their fist below their chin, they sight down that shaft, and from here they can deliver a very powerful thrust, which we do in drill practice with the command of lay on! Lay on! They will continue to perform that motion until the desired effect is achieved, namely the destruction of their enemy. Now, I can actually from this position show you the power of the pike block, and it's not in what the front of the formation would look like, it's actually in its depth. Pikemen, face your body by the left pad. Now as you can see, this is what the pike block would look like from the side. The first two men are ready to fight. The first man in that charge position, the second man charging a little lower. This is to prevent anyone from getting sneaky and trying to just simply duck under him. The third man is ready in the rear to plug any holes, any gaps that may form from casualty. He's also looking for these men to grow tired. If he sees that the front man is getting fatigued, he'll actually shove the man in front of him forward so he can retire and take a breath. It's only the end of the first two ranks of the pike block that fight in this formation. Now, getting into this as an attacker, if you pardon the pun, is a bit of a prickly situation, but it can be done. If somehow I get past this first man here, it's the second man's job to get me. But if I can somehow get past him and then kill the first man, you see how the formation then fills the gap and continues on fighting. You may rise, Lazarus. Are you well? Very well. Pikemen, face your bodies by the right hand and shoulder your pikes. Now you would think with such a large spear that the pikemen are a bit unwieldy in combat, only able to strike at that distance. However, they can be a bit sneaky themselves. If they are suddenly finding enemies behind them, they can react very quickly without having to do any complicated maneuvers to turn themselves about. We simply charge pike to the rear. And lay on. Charge your pike to the rear. And lay on. And the pikemen are a very good defensive formation. The reason they're a very good defensive formation is actually the primary reason why they are on the battlefield. And that is to defend our soft and swishy musketeers against armored cavalry. When you do that, you adopt a position called charge for horse. Tell them advance their pikes. Order your pikes. Pikemen, prepare for horse. Placing the butt of the pike upon the ground, they will then draw their sword and bring that weapon down at about a 45-degree angle or so. Now, I don't wish to upset any animal lovers in the audience, but the point of this weapon is not leveled at the rider. It is actually indeed leveled at the chest of the horse. This is because two things will happen, possibly. The first, this is because the horse is smarter than his rider. He'll see this lovely bit of points and pull up short. He's not going to go anywhere near them. Well, now that armored knight has momentum working against him. That horse suddenly stops. He's going to go flying over those reins and land in this lovely little pike block here. And should he somehow survive that, there are always pesky musketeers lurking in the rear, ready to finish him off. Now the second thing that's going to happen is that horse is going to come crashing into this formation. Armor and pikemen flying everywhere. Don't worry about them. I'll just hammer out the dents in the armor, put it on somebody new, and we'll be just as fine as we were before. But in either case, something's going to happen to this weapon. It's going to break. It's going to shatter. It's going to simply be knocked from their hands. At which point, pikemen get their favorite command. Pikemen, quit your pikes and fall upon the audience.
Who put the rope up?
What?
Mr. O'Neill. Hey, we'll toss him.
All right, it would be good to point out at this time that pikemen are recruited for their strength of arm, not strength of mind. Pikemen, return to your formation.
Oh, I wanted that helmet.
And to think that in the time period, pikemen were thought to be the more noble arm. Pick up your pikes. Advance your pikes. Face your bodies by the left hand. Prepare to march on. Recover your ranks and files upon returning to the formation. So that's our pikemen, ladies and gentlemen. Please let them know you appreciated some of that, for all of that. Now we're going to switch to our musketeers. Musketeers, prepare to march. And march on. Prepare to stand and stand. Face your body by the left hand. By the right hand, double your fire. Now, we have musketeers. When you think musketeers, certain imagery is going to come to your mind. I know it will. There are plenty of moving pictures involving musketeers. And it's with that imagery in your mind, I want you to look at these fine examples. Can anyone tell me what they think might be missing? I heard it louder. Swords, yes, very good. Now, unlike those fancy French gentlemen, these are but humble farmers and shopkeepers, plucked from their jobs and trained in the use of arms. I don't have the time to spend 7, 8, 9, 10 years training them in the use of the sword, particularly when I've just handed them a wonderful 12-pound club. Speaking of our lovely little club there, this is the matchlock musket, which some might say is the height of firearms technology in the 16th century. It is named the matchlock because of the piece of burning cord in each of their hands. This is cotton or hemp rope, cotton in this case, that has been soaked in saltpeter, basically old gunpowder. And when ignited, burns very hot and very slowly. The coal on the end of that match reaches temperatures of nearly 400 degrees. You're essentially putting fire into gunpowder. Something is bound to happen. Now, it's a very simple weapon to use. There are only 21 steps in loading and firing of it. And it is taught to them through the pages of a picture book. Why a picture book, you may ask? Well, in the 16th century, while improving, literacy rates aren't that great. About 1 person in 3 actually knows how to read. So they look at the pictures in order to tell them what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to stand. It's actually the same with our pikemen here. And I can tell you, after only 2 weeks, my fine pikemen can color inside the lines and everything. So the first step is they will handle their piece. They will then open their pan and clean out their pan, making sure there isn't any dirt left over from the last shot. They will then handle their prime and prime their piece, pouring a small amount of very fine gunpowder in that pan, that dish at the side. They will then close their pan. And because we have the very hot match of the very hot coal of the match very near the gunpowder, we need to make sure there isn't anywhere we don't want it. They will cast off loose corns and blow off loose corns. Corns being another name for the grains of gunpowder. They will then cast about their piece. This gives them access to the muzzle. I'll then have them handle their charge. Now you notice 3 of my musketeers went for the wooden bottles across their chest. This is their bandolier of charges. Each one of those wooden bottles has enough gunpowder for 1 shot from the musket. Now the musketeer on the end there in the black hat, she's a bit more specialized. She's what is being introduced in this time period as a dragoon. A dragoon is a musketeer that is issued a horse. Well, really it's more like a pony. But in either case, she'll use this animal to get from one point on a battlefield to another very quickly, dismount, and then fight on as a musketeer. So, as you can imagine, bouncing around on horseback with a bandolier could get a bit uncomfortable. Therefore, she uses the cartridge instead. This prevents her from becoming a black-eyed Susan. It's actually introduced around the year 1540. Now I have them charge their piece, pouring down that full measure of gunpowder. Now if they were loading a shot, which they are not today, they'd simply pluck one from the pouch at their side, or more often spit one down the barrel they've been carrying around in their mouth. Now this may sound ridiculous considering it's a lead ball. There's actually a few reasons for this. One is it's the 16th century. The dangers of lead poisoning aren't very well known. There's a more practical reason for this. All these muskets you see before you are made by hand. Each one's just a little bit different than the next. All of your musket balls are made by hand. Each one just a little bit different than the next. You may have to chew on your musket ball to get it to fit down the barrel. This actually brings us to a requirement to join the train bands as a musketeer. You must possess 3 opposing teeth, but just 3. So now I'll have them draw forth their scouring stick. and ram home their charge, seating everything good and tight down at the bottom. They will then recover their scouring stick and replace it, which is the most important step of this entire drill. Don't get me wrong, you can fire your scouring stick. It makes an excellent projectile. However, it's a rather awkward weapon. The awkward part being having to go across the battlefield and ask for it back. We don't want any shish kebabs, so we make sure we put it back. Next, I will have them recover their piece. Take forth their match and blow it well, it says in the manual of arms. To get that coal good and hot and getting any ash off the end. You may actually see it glow orange there. They will then cock and try their match, placing it in the jaws of the serpentine and working the action to ensure it's going to hit the proper place in the pan. It is at this point that they're ready to fire, so I will turn them in a safe direction. Musketeers, by the left hand, wheel about the center. And place yourself 4 paces to the rear. I'll then call them to present their piece. I'll give a bit of warning here. Have a care! Give fire! Now, good musketeers are expected to be able to fire at the rate of 3 rounds in a minute. Now, obviously, they can't do that while being each and every little step of the drill. That's where my job gets very simple. All you need to say is, musketeers, make ready your piece. And they will now do so as quickly as they can. This is because you can imagine this is what it would look like on the battlefield. Musketeers no longer doing that lovely little drill practice. Now they're doing this simply for survival. You may actually see musketeers skip steps as they go through their drill. That was quite well done. Present your piece and give fire. Now, something else you may have noticed through all that drill, that the butt of the weapon never touches the ground. This is because musketeers are expected, in addition to that 20-second per round time, they are expected to be able to reload whilst on the move. The reason for that has been standing right here the whole time, our armored pikemen. The musketeers are advancing shoulder to shoulder with them. It's the musketeers' job to get the pikemen where they can do the most good, namely in close quarters with the enemy. Pikemen sadly only have a range of 12 feet, to the musketeers 75 yards. So the musketeers have to do a little bit of maneuvering to do this. We call it fire by advance. Can you imagine a few more ranks of musketeers here? The rear rank will be called to the front. They'll discharge in a volley like I've been showing you. They'll immediately begin to reload. The new rear rank will come forward and do the same. So the effect you have is you're leapfrogging towards the enemy with the pikemen steadily advancing at your shoulder. We'll show you how this works in miniature. Musketeers, by the left hand, double your ranks. Rear rank, advance to the floor. Present your piece and give fire. Rear rank, advance to the floor. Present your piece and give fire. So, as the musketeers return their formation, show them a little appreciation. The final thing we're going to show you today is how these two units work in concert. In order to do that, we're going to go back to that charge for horse scenario we showed you with the Pike a little earlier. You can imagine a thundering horde of cavalry coming up over this hill. This company needs to defend itself. Therefore, what's going to happen, I'm going to call the command of company prepare for horse. The pikemen will rush forward, forming a human wall in that charge for horse position. The musketeers will then come in behind them and discharge in several volleys in order to dissuade that cavalry from coming any closer. So, the musketeers are ready. We'll show you how this works. Company, prepare for horse. Forward! Draw steel hand! Urgent steel! Front line to the line! Present your piece and give fire! Fire and make ready! Second rank to the line! Present your piece and give fire! Fire and make ready! hold them up. Pikeman, you may recover your rank of 5.